This episode of the Off-Road Podcast is sponsored by Warren, Medical Gear Outfitters, and Colby Valve.
Off-Road Podcast 409. Off-Road Acronyms.
Tonight, Aaron can't get away, Coy wanders around Oregon, and Ben plays Yellowstone.
Welcome to the Off-Road Podcast, a podcast about everything off-road. We cover the news, review products, and interview people in the off-road industry. Your hosts tonight are Aaron, myself, Coy. Welcome to the show.
I'm glad you introduced yourself.
Yeah. Well, how was your weekend, man?
I guess it's probably fitting if we talk about mine first. So
Yeah, makes sense.
So you and I had some really grandiose plans. We were going to drive to the eastern portion of Central Oregon. What are you drinking there, Coy?
This is post-op Bud Light, actually. Or pre-op. This has been
pre-op.
Pre-op.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, you could probably make some money off of that selling it on eBay or Etsy or something.
Oh, I probably could, but it's not worth the sweet deliciousness of the wateriest beer made.
Wateriest beer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, back on topic. I don't want to get called a liberal podcast or anything because you're drinking Bud Light. So yeah, we had these grandiose plans. About 3 days before. 3 days before we were leaving, I got my rooftop tent loaded up on top of my the camp trailer that I built. And actually, a couple days prior to that, I actually greased the bearings and everything because it hadn't been done in 8 years. I built that trailer 8 years ago, Coy. So it's been a while.
I need to grease the bearings with your trailer, actually.
Yeah. Mine had Easy Lube bearings, which pumps the grease through the axle and it pops out at the rear race. And then as you pump it full, it forces the grease out the end. So pretty cool. I'm not sure why Chad is sad about Coy. I'm not sure why Chad's sad here. It is a sad emoji. Chad is sad about Coy. I don't know, Chad. Tell us why you're sad, or if you just hit the wrong emoji. I don't know. Chad's not usually sad. Chad is usually a pretty happy guy. So yeah, I lubed the bearings in my camp trailer, got the rooftop tent loaded, popped open the rooftop tent, and it's moldy. Really bummed about that. So backup plan, we've got a Gazelle T8, which is a 8x16 Gazelle pop-up tent. I get that pulled out, loaded up, and oh, he's sad about the Bud Light.
I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to drink it.
Yeah, that'd be wasteful. That'd be super wasteful. So got everything loaded. The day before we were supposed to leave, my daughter gets calls. I guess the nurse from the school called my wife, and she's not feeling good. And my wife picked her up, and she's in tears, and she's not feeling good, and her head hurts, and her stomach hurts, and everything else. And it ended up being an ear infection and possibly strep throat. The culture's still out, apparently. It's going to take several days to find out. So she's on antibiotics. For fear of us getting other people sick with strep throat, since it's contagious, we decided to stick around the farm for the weekend. So we did not get out in camp this weekend, which was a huge bummer. But that did give me a lot of time to work around the farm, worked on the chicken coop some. But my big thing was I organized the little bit of stuff that I do have in my new shop. Did a very thorough sweeping in there from the stuff that I could. And then I started drilling studs and running Romex and installing boxes and all that stuff. So I've got about 50% of the electrical done in my shop. And I'm pretty excited about that. Got the exterior lights put up. It's going to be a while, but I'll get all this ready and then I'll get it inspected. I got to do this legally. Can't sneak this one in under the radar. So for anybody who's wondering, this one's going to be completely legal and all that stuff. So yeah, so I got a lot of time in the shop, a lot of shop time. So we got Van City Adventure in the comments. Good to see you. And Eric's in the comments also. How about you, Coy? So did you make it all the way to the other side of the state?
I didn't. So after you completely bailed on our trip and just left me hanging last second, I, being the hero I am, was like, we're going camping anyways. I wanted to be able to do this trip with you in the future. We had kind of planned it for a while. We've both been wanting to kind of explore that part of the state and haven't spent very much time there. So I said, you know what? Told my wife it's a long drive anyways. It's going to be 10 o'clock before we get there. And without you being ahead of me a little bit, scouting out a spot, excuse me, it could be midnight before I even get camp set up. So it's like, let's go someplace closer. Friend of the show, Brent, he has Frontier Overland, and he had a kind of a Memorial Day camp going on. So I messaged him and was like, hey, you mind if I jump in? You got room? He said, yeah, and shot me the coordinates. And it was kind of in the Milliken, edge of China Hat type area. So I went over there and camped out there for the weekend. Didn't do a whole lot, honestly. It was very relaxing. Set up camp. There were some other kids there, my kids' exact age. They played super hard. I sat in a chair. Somebody had left a bunch of firewood there, and they had like a built. It wasn't the best firewood, but it was dry, and it was nearly unsplittable, some of it. But me and Dakota just got bored, started going nuts on it. Somebody had built a hunting bathroom, just a box with a lid with a toilet seat on it, and it was super nice. With like a tin surround. I was just out in the open, but there was actually like a little tent thing that was just folded up beside it. You could pop up and set over it. It had the wood surround on top of it. They had a cup holder, fishing rod holder, a magazine holder. Like, it's clearly a hunting camp thing that they left there, but it was super nice. Nicest bathroom I've ever had camping. That wasn't, that was a homemade bathroom.
It had a cup holder in it, though.
It literally had a cup holder. You could just go sit out and look out across the Oregon High Desert Plains with your coffee first thing in the morning and relieve yourself. Yeah. It's a little sketchy because there was quite a few people there, so you kind of had to announce to everybody that you were heading that way, so nobody just walked up on you. But
yeah.
You
gotta bring like one of those crossing guard flags so you can post the crossing guard flag. So when people walk that way,
do like the shame walk with the bell, shame, as I walk over there, so everybody knows I'm headed that way. We got out the guns, did a little shooting. This one guy there, Jonah, he's quite the chef. So he had a pizza oven, and he said, if you guys want toppings, throw them in my pile of toppings, and I'll make pizzas for everybody. And he went and got the ingredients during the day, came back, cooked everybody a personal pizza. I mean, sausage, bacon, mushrooms, whatever you want. Very delicious. Stayed up, did a little drinking, more fire. Well, once again, like, I literally didn't start my truck all of Saturday. I just hung, and it was actually well needed. Like, I was kind of wanting to go someplace till about noon, and I was like, no, I'm enjoying this. I'm just gonna hang out, let my kids play, and just sit here. Then in the morning, Jonah, once again, he said, bring all your stuff. We're just gonna scramble everything we got, and I'm gonna make breakfast burritos. So we had some tomatoes and diced onions that we were going to put in tacos, and everybody kind of just contributed. I threw some eggs in, and then he didn't just like make a breakfast burrito scramble. He made the breakfast burrito, put them in the burritos with cheese and stuff and all the fixins, folded them up, and then you know how you can like panini press them so they stay all together and kind of cook the outside of your burrito? Yeah, he did that for everybody, and he's like, all right, it's ready. There's just this stack of perfectly seared burritos that we all got. It was amazing.
Man,
I need to invite him on more camping trips. He's quite the chef.
Yes. Yeah, we need that.
Anyways, all of that group was taken off that Sunday. It would have been Sunday morning. So I went ahead and took off because didn't want to just camp there by myself. My buddy Garrett lives in Prineville, so we went and spent kind of the afternoon with him. Then we started heading towards home from Prineville. I was planning on just kind of finding a spot in the Cascades and staying one more night was my plan. I had talked to another buddy that was camping in Warm Springs, and I was going to go with him, but he was at a campground, and I would have had to get like a big RV site, and I'm not going to pay. I was like, yeah, if it had been just a camp tent site or something, I might have, but I'm not going to pay the $40 or whatever.
Yep.
So as we were going through the Cascades, I had Overlander and Ultimate Public Campground, and then just my knowledge of spots, since that's kind of more my turf. We're checking spots as we went. Wasn't just really coming up. Either people were in it, and then as soon as I got really into the Cascades, there, even though the pass is totally clear and it doesn't look like there's snow, there was still a lot of snow.
Wow.
Over like Potato Hill, I ran up there, and I got up there ways, and I was driving through some snow, and I was pulling the trailer, but I got to a spot, and it was probably 100, 150, 200 feet where the snow just went from dirt road to a probably 5 foot deep and then back down.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, that spring, just a big pile of it. I wanted to drive through it so bad, but I had the trailer. I was by myself, and it was in a burn area, so the trees were a little sketchy. Like my winch points weren't, maybe I won't say there wasn't winch points because there were trees, but there were burnt trees, and you don't really want to.
Yeah.
Be careful. You can pull one of those on you pretty easy. See if we can. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, Charlie Lurker, I was kind of doing the same thing or trying to. But anyways, yeah. So I couldn't find a good spot, and then I told my kids, "Look, we're just gonna go home. It's we're an hour and a half from home." Much tears and to do about promises of camping one more night. It's like, I'm the bad guy. I'm like, look, I spent the last 4 hours trying to find a decent spot.
Yeah.
I've done 19-point turnarounds with this trailer on the end of dead end roads and stuff, and drug through brush. So as we're coming down, we have some friends that they have an RV that they leave at an RV park in Detroit, and that one of their kids is real good friends with my son and daughter. So we thought, we'll stop by and visit them. I'm sure they're there this weekend. They can play for a while. Then we'll go home. And as we pulled in there, we were talking to them, and then they're like, all these spots get rented out for like 6 months. It's like people stay there for the summer. It's all boat people. Mm-hmm. The owner of the park was there, and he's like, why don't you just stay for the night? You got your camper. And I'm like, no, it's fine. He's like, literally, there's a spot right here. Just back it in here. Like, this is already paid for. These people already took their stuff out for the weekend. Just park it here. So,
whoa.
I just backed it in and stayed the night, and we sat around. My kids got to play and have a good time, and packed up this morning. And I got home about noon. So, fun-filled weekend. Had a good time.
I did forget to mention that we did kind of make up a little bit for not going camping. We went down to the creek yesterday, and the kids swam in the creek. The dog played in the water, and I built a campfire down there, and we roasted bratwurst and s'mores and had watermelon down there. And then last night, after we got back from the creek, I set up that swag tent that I had in our side yard, and Thomas said he wanted to sleep in the tent, so we let him sleep overnight in the yard. So he got a little bit of camping done.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, we got some listener feedback here, Coy. And it's from the gentleman who won our Warren medium duty recovery kit. So he says, package arrived just before I left for a camping trip last weekend. I didn't end up getting stuck, though I did carry my new straps and shackles around with me. I know, weird for a Nissan to make it through a trip with no breakdowns or recoveries. Anyways, I enjoyed the trail review show. I'm looking forward to the next one. Thanks again. Have a great week, Sam. So, and I responded back something about, actually, no, Nissans rarely get stuck or need to be recovered or break down. So I just kind of had to throw that in there, that normally Nissans don't have issues unless it's in the snow and you have to be towed uphill because you have too much firewood. But beyond that, Nissans don't usually have issues.
How'd it feel saying that to another Nissan guy? So there's like literally no pushback, and he's just like, "Yeah." You're like, "Yeah."
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often. Doesn't happen
Yeah, I
very
mean
often.
that in itself is a rare occurrence.
That two Nissan guys connected. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. Sam, I hope you don't ever really need to use a recovery equipment, but if you do, you got some good quality product there. So we're excited that you won. We also want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Patch. Head over to patriotpatch.co and check out their selection of great patches, shirts, cleaning mats, signs, and stickers. You can also join the Patch of the Month Club for $15 and receive a patch, matching sticker, and artist proof each month. Don't forget, we've got patches for sale. If you don't have one yet, you can hit us up and we'll either mail them to you or we can see you at the Northwest Overland Rally, which is coming up in 2.5 weeks, Coy. We're going camping again in 2.5 weeks.
I parked my trailer on the back porch, and I'm leaving it there. Like, I popped it up. I'm just gonna leave it there so I can
Yeah,
repack it. I'm not even putting it
nice.
away in the garage.
Not a bad idea. I, however, need a brand new mattress for my rooftop tent before we can go camping. I'm not going to ground tent like the peasants do. So, um, yeah. So I got to get that figured out. I've got an email off to a company. I'll talk about that maybe next week. Yeah. Anyways, patches. $10 for each patch, or if you need them shipped, it's $13 for the first and $10 for every patch after that. So check those out.
Have tire troubles ever left you deflated? Colby Valve has got you covered. Ever have a valve stem leak? Colby Valve makes reusable and easily replaceable valve stems that don't require you to remove your tire from the wheel. They work with your off-road rig, ATV, side-by-side, commuter vehicle, or even your tractor. Never be left stranded again because of a busted valve stem. They also have a tire repair kit for those punctures that keep you away from doing your favorite thing, wheeling. Make sure to check out colbyvalve.com or ask for them at your local off-road products store.
All right. Well, news this week. We mentioned it came out a month or two back, the 2024 Chevy Silverado 2500 HD ZR2. And there's also a Bison edition as well. This article comes from Motor Trend. Basically, it's just a bunch of the stats about this truck. So this truck is going to kind of compete with the F250 trimmer, which is one package below the Raptor. One package above the FX2. The Ram Rebel and the Ram Power Wagon 2500. So it's going to come with 3-spool Multimatic dynamic suspension spool valve dampeners. That was an absolute mouthful, by the way. And that pairs with an 1.5-inch suspension lift, which gives it a little bit more ground clearance. It's got ZR2 specific front control arms and steering knuckles. And it has a rear electronic locker. Chevy claims that with the new off-road mode and 35-inch all-terrain tires, there's no need for a front locker like the smaller ZR2 has. And I've actually heard this mentioned before, that these bigger trucks with the heavier engines and stuff like that, you have a lot more traction up front than a lighter vehicle does, and there isn't as much need for a front locker. Have you thought about that at all, Coy? Have you ever heard that?
I haven't heard that. I mean, it's really more like the articulation where I feel like the front locker really shines, and it doesn't really matter what you weigh if you're taking all the weight off one side. So
Yeah,
I feel like that's a bit of a mouthpiece from the marketing department, but
kind of
there's
like
probably some truth to it.
Toyota Tacomas and drum brakes.
Yeah, exactly. Where they're like drumming up all of the good points of drum brakes, and it's like, we've all decided that disc is superior, so why are
Far superior.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. It's also got full underbody skid plates. The front skid plate is built from aluminum, while the while the transfer skid plate is steel. And I find both of those really interesting because the Colorado's skid plates, and I don't know if it's the Bison edition or if it's the ZR2 and the Bison edition, but it gets that I can't think of what metal that is now. But it's some really hard steel, which makes it more slippery. Let's see here. ZR2.
Yeah, wasn't it like something they make the space shuttle rocket nozzles out of or something? I'd heard the name of it before. It's some kind of unobtainium type.
It's called hot stamped boron steel. So it's lightweight and really strong.
See, that sounds really good though, but like, is it really any better? Or are they just, is this just like Lucky Stripe having the air dried tobacco? And it's like, oh, it's all air dried. Like,
I think that it is better because it's harder and it's like denser material. Like if you compared aluminum skid plates to a regular steel skid plate, like you can slide over a rock better on steel than you can on aluminum. The aluminum's soft and it gouges and it's kind of hang up on stuff.
I totally agree with that. But I mean, is their skid plate still just like every Toyota or whatever brand skid plate where it's just beer can thin? And even if it's really hard, it still just deforms.
From the sounds of it, it was like specially developed for the ZR2, and I think it actually is for the Bison edition only.
Oh,
but that boron it's like so much harder that because it's so hard, you don't have to have a thicker skid plate. The density of it helps you slide over things. So I don't know. I don't own one. I'm not a metallurgist. So
it's going to be sweet when we see one shatter.
There we go. When it gets really cold, they shatter.
Yeah, you're going to hit a rock in the snow, it just explodes.
Yeah. Let's see here. The base engine, which is a 6.6 liter V8, is 401 horsepower, 460 foot-pounds of torque. And the Duramax also is a 6.6 liter V8, and it's 470 horse and a whopping 975 foot-pounds of torque. Both of them come with an Allison 10-speed transmission. So I don't know what I would do with 975 foot-pounds. Well, I do know what I would do with 975 foot-pounds of torque. I would do lots of burnouts and stuff like that, probably.
I mean, if I had that much torque in my FJ, I'd just spend all my time replacing axles, I assume.
And tires. Axles and tires.
hopefully axles, honestly. But yeah, probably tires as well.
Yeah. The Bison edition has unique steel bumpers with an integrated winch provision. It doesn't have a winch, just has a winch provision. Recovery points, stamped steel skid plates. Although that's interesting, it just mentions them being stamped steel. I wonder if the Bison edition has boron skid plates or not. I'll have to do some digging into that. The skid plates are for the engine, the steering rack, transfer case, and exhaust, which is interesting. And it's got unique wheels and interior trim. So here's where it gets real, the payload. So the gas ZR2 can hold basically 3,400 pounds in the bed, which that's more than 3/4 of a ton. Where the Ram Rebel is 3,100. The Power Wagon is only 1,600 pounds. But the F250 trimmer can hold 4,053 pounds. So that the trimmer, you can put 1 ton of weight in the bed.
That's 2 tons.
I'm sorry, you're right. That is 2 tons. I don't know why I got that wrong. That's 2 tons of weight. So that means at 3,400 pounds, that is 1.5 tons basically for the gas ZR2. The diesel ZR2 can tow 18,500 pounds, where the next runner up is the Ram Rebel at 16,850. The F-150 is 15,000, and the Power Wagon is 10,000. So I don't know if you noticed, but the Power Wagon had really low numbers in both of these, and that's because the rear suspension is super flexy, and it's meant to articulate, which really cuts down on the payload. So
I'm honestly surprised that the Ford is lower in towing, but interesting.
Yeah, by quite a bit, and
Yeah,
I'm
it was
surprised by that
significant
too.
amount. I'm wondering, does the Tremor come with 18s or 17s? Maybe it just has is it smaller brakes? Is that what we got going on here? I don't know.
It could be, but I'm also really surprised by the 15 because our gas-powered F-150 spec'd properly can tow 12,500.
Yeah, that's kind of
Um,
that just seems low for a Ford Tremor. It's interesting.
yeah, and the Tremor, I'm pretty sure, is a diesel-powered,
You can
and
get it either or. So
okay.
technically, there may be a higher Ford Tremor one, and they just are going off the gas. I could go either way.
Well, but they're comparing it to the diesel towing capacity in this article, so I don't know. Well, here's the information you really want to know. How much does it cost? So the ZR2 starts at 87,000, while the Bison edition starts at $93,000. So that's up there. That's really high.
That's crazy. I mean, yeah, that I can't believe the price of some of these new trucks. I don't understand who can afford them.
Yeah. It's definitely not not achievable for us mere mortals.
I'm going to definitely keep pumping copious amounts of money and time into my 10-year-old rig
What
and just keep
what
going
else
on
do you
the
supposed
rest of
to
my
do?
life. I mean, I could just completely rebuild it from scratch eventually, That's what I'm going to tell my wife. I could buy a new vehicle or I can just keep slowly replacing all the parts on this.
Yeah.
Like one of those immortal jellyfish, just a cycle of rebirth constantly. Saving us so much money. The Motor Trend, we got an article from them about the 2024 Ford Ranger Raptor. Yes, it's finally happening, guys. The Ford Ranger Raptor.
We've been only waiting for this for like 7 years or something.
Yeah. Seriously, man. Seriously. And I'm actually, I wasn't that stoked till I started really reading into this, and I'm actually pretty excited about it now that I kind of have all the, info. It comes with the same 3-liter twin turbo as the Bronco Raptor does or did. It does have slightly less horsepower. I didn't write the numbers down, but it's like 15 less horsepower and same in torque as the Bronco Raptor. They said just because of the air intake placement and the extra length of the exhaust.
Oh no.
I'm surprised, but we all own Sawzalls, right, guys?
Absolutely.
But don't worry. It weighs 400 pounds less than its SUV counterpart, the Bronco Raptor. So that 15 horsepower, if you actually calculate that out in power to weight ratio, is completely a wash. And actually, the Ranger's in the positive over the Bronco. It's got a 3.5-inch wider track width, and the rear suspension loses leaf springs in favor of radius arm and coilovers. Now, this is
I'm
another
surprised
thing
by that.
I found. Like, have you ever heard of a Watts linkage on rear suspension?
I've only ever heard of it. I have no idea what it means.
I hadn't even heard of it, and then when I Googled it, then I've seen it on Baja trucks and stuff. So the Raptor, Bronco Raptor uses a typical rear coil system with a panhard bar, whereas this uses a Watts linkage. So instead of the panhard bar coming down and mounting to the axle, you have two panhard bars, and they come down and they mount to a swivel. So the axle, say on the back or front of the axle. So there's a swivel piece, and then on top, say an I-shaped beam with a swivel in the center that hooks to the axle, and then on each end of that I from opposite sides, a Watts linkage or a panhard bar connects to that. So your axle stays completely centered through the entire range of suspension, compression, and depression. I don't know that that's ever been used in an OEM setup before. I've only seen that on like super custom stuff. And I'm really curious what the Ford is using as a bearing in that center swiveling piece. yeah, I'm really curious about this, and I'm wondering how many people are going to rob this suspension component for their projects on these, at least in a couple years. Like if you can just
Some
go to
people,
Ford and order this watch linkage, and
yeah.
it kind of makes sense. But that's a really really cool suspension setup on a factory rig. That's super unique. So, anyways, the suspension modes, it has different suspension modes. You know, that factory goat mode type thing includes tow haul, sport, slippery, off road, rock crawl, and Baja. Also, they include a new mode called R mode that continuously monitors driving preferences, habits, traction, and ground contact, and then preemptively preps the suspension for your driving style. If you don't have it in Baja mode and then you decided to jump this thing, it senses that it's gone airborne and readjusts the shocks on the fly to soak up that landing. So I honestly don't. I think you just leave it in R mode all the time unless you're towing. Like what? Like I don't know. Seems like that's how I'd do it, but
So it turns out that the Ford Ranger has had a Watts Link suspension before.
oh really?
Back in 1998, it was in the Ford Ranger EV, which was an absolute abomination of a vehicle,
I
by the
didn't
way.
even know they made an EV in '98.
It was basically like an electric motor up front with a bunch of lead acid batteries. It wasn't like today's EVs at all.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm trying to do some searching to find out what vehicles had it, and I'm only seeing that, and then I saw that, like, you could fit it to different vehicles, but, like, you can add it to Mustang suspensions and stuff like that, but I don't really see it in any of my Googling, so
As far as I'm aware, and I'm no suspension expert, but I'm very well versed. Panhard bars are the easy way to do it. But when a panhard bar coil setup, as you go up and down through the motion of travel, the suspension actually off centers in the from the body. So it'll go up and down, but it also will
Mhm.
swing left and right. Say
Yeah.
it's not a lot. It'll be an inch or two for full compression. If your panhard bar is mounted on the passenger side to the driver's side of the axle, it's going to push driver as you compress, and then come passenger as it comes down in that motion. Whereas the Watts linkage, it stays totally centered. So in say performance cars, as you compress, left and right corners will handle differently because the axle shifts back and forth. In a four-wheel drive situation, it has almost no bearing because it just that axle shift means nothing. But on like a Baja setup, which is clearly what they're going with this Ranger, that is going to make a difference. And I think it's really cool that Ford took that in mind because nobody does really.
It looks like Ford has also used it in some Australian vehicles, the Ford Falcon, and some of their Utes, which is interesting.
Oh,
And it said that it was in some Isuzus, possibly Land Rover Discovery and Range Rover models as well, and the Ford Everest. So there still isn't lots of information out there to find out about it. But
well, it's got more moving parts and
yeah,
more wear parts than a panhard bar, but it's debatably better.
yep.
The I didn't actually write it in our show notes here. The Bronco has quite a bit more ground clearance. I didn't write the differences. So Ford did go ahead and give it up on the ground clearance with this compared to the Bronco. But once
Hmm.
again, I don't think they're going for rock crawl with this. This is going to be a little mini desert bomber. Now, here's the
Yeah.
part that I'm really excited about. This starting price on the Ford Ranger Raptor is $56,900. That almost feels like a typo to me.
Okay.
I have a hard time believing that since the Bronco Raptor starting price was like 79, and then everybody marked them up to like 109. I just
Yeah.
that seems like why would you be going to buy probably not even a TRD Pro when you can get a Raptor Ranger? You know what I mean?
It's true.
What do you think about that price compared to all the competition for This isn't necessarily a wheeling rig, but it's just a camping rig. Like, I mean, especially high desert and stuff. Man,
Yeah. This is going to be super hot in places where, like around the Glamis sand dunes, or any place where there's big dunes or fast wheeling Mint 400 crowd. I could even see like a stock class of these things.
it, so there is going to be, I can't remember who, somebody is entering this in stock form in the Baja 1000, I guess, and it's some
There you
stock
go.
class. I just feel like for everybody who's buying Toyotas right now and they're playing around in any of the high desert area, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, California, this is pretty much better in every way as far as I can tell. It's got a lot of power. The suspension is crazy good. It's going to be a great vehicle. So, and the price points, if it really starts at 56.9, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Go prepared with Warren Industries. They produced the first recreational winch in 1959 and lead the industry with their dedication to quality and reliability. When you dig yourself in deep, make sure you have the right tools to get yourself out. Get Warren equipped and go where others can't. Now, let's get ready for adventure and head into our main topic.
All right. Well, like our title says, our episode this week is about off-road acronyms. So we wanted to kind of keep this episode easy. Coy didn't get home from his camp trip till today. I was supposed to be with him. We didn't really have a lot of time to throw stuff together, so we want to just make an easy episode. And also, just a
that TV show about the secret agent, it's all action, and then all of a sudden 1 week it's like he goes home for Thanksgiving dinner and it's kind of like, what happened here? We want like one of those episodes, filler episode.
Yeah, there you go. So a few months ago, we did an episode about the alphabet with you. We kind of went through all the letters of the alphabet. And this week, we're going to put some of those letters together and create something called an acronym. So Webster's Dictionary defines an acronym as an abbreviated form from the initial letters of other words and pronounced as a word. So some of these I don't think you can really pronounce. So you might just say the letters instead of actually trying to pronounce it as a word. So starting off here, 4WD, I don't think you'd pronounce it Ford. You just say the letters 4WD. So maybe that's not an acronym if you're just saying it. So 4WD is obviously for, well, I shouldn't say obvious. This purpose of this episode is if you don't know some of these things, maybe you're going to learn them from us. So 4WD would be four-wheel drive. I'll do a few of them here and then I'll kick it over to you, Coy. The next one is TRD, which a lot of people pronounce turd. Turd. That would be Toyota Racing Development. All-wheel drive. Let's see there. I screwed up. I did it backwards. AWD would be all-wheel drive. Another one here is NISMO. This one isn't really an acronym because it's actually just two words that are shortened. NIS would be Nissan and MO would be Motorsports. So NISMO isn't 5 specific words. So but that's Nissan Motorsports, and Motorsports sounds like race car business, but no, they apply that to their off-road brand as well.
I'm interested on what you have for this next one because I don't think it's an acronym.
Yeah, I didn't look that one up.
Okay. Crawl control, as far as I know, and as far as I actually researched, because then I got interested, like, oh, is it an acronym? Crawl is not an acronym. It is just the name of what is essentially off-road cruise control. That's crawl control.
I threw that in there expecting it to be an acronym, and it turns out it wasn't.
It doesn't. I did find, while I was trying to figure out what it stood for, I did find out that you can use crawl control in reverse, which surprised me, but then I was like, that makes sense, but that's awesome.
I would kind of expect it because it would help you get out of what you get yourself into.
I agree, but I just, for some reason, I didn't have that in my brain. MTS. once again, just no, sorry. Multi-terrain select. That's another Toyota thing, often paired with crawl control. It's a newer, what I believe, anyways, is a newer system, similar to say Ford's GOAT modes. You set it to different
Oh,
terrains.
that's one we didn't put in there. Is what does GOAT stand for? Do you know that one off the top of your head?
True. Goes over all terrain, I believe, is what that stands for. So,
yeah.
Then we have A-Track. Oh, I do love A-Track. I have that in my vehicle, active traction control, and it is an electronic system that simulates the limited slip differential, just uses the brakes to grab the side that's slipping and, simulate that it has traction.
Gotcha.
Then we have KDDS, Kinetic Dynamic Suspension System. It's, as far as I know, only comes on 4Runners, and it allows the sway bars to kind of somewhat disconnect and flex more when you're off-road.
That was a new one for me. I had heard of KDDS, but I'd never looked into it to know what it did.
Yeah, they used it on a few 4Runners, and it wasn't like every 4Runner. So basically they just made it really hard for some people to lift their vehicle and keep their KDDS.
Nice.
As far as I can tell, it's not. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm sure it works good, but I don't think it's a huge advantage. So,
gotcha. This next one I have never ever heard of, and I don't even know how you pronounce it. The X-rays, maybe it's pronounced X-rays, XREAS. But the X doesn't stand for anything with an X. It stands for cross, which a lot of X's in acronyms do. But XREAS stands for cross-linked relative absorber system. So basically it connects shock absorbers with their diagonal counterpart, front left to right rear, front right to left rear. And it takes fluid away from one shock and adds it to the other shock when there's a big impact. So kind of wild.
Was that a Defender or Land Rover thing?
I found that as a 4Runner thing also, so that would mean that it was probably in some Lexuses on that stuff as well.
I've never even heard of this X-ray system. That's interesting.
Yeah. DCA, downhill assist control, so that lets you basically, what did I say?
You said DCA, DAC.
Yeah. Oh, well, Ben's not here. I got to get a couple of them backwards in his honor. Since he's not here, I got to get a little dyslexia going on. Yeah. So DAC, downhill assist control. So it's a system that allows your vehicle to maintain a very low speed when descending down a hill. You keep your foot off the brake pedal completely, and you'll continue to travel slowly down a steep hill. My Nissan has this. I know that Toyotas have it. A lot of vehicles will have it. Downhill assist control. Another one that I wish my Nissan had, this is a Toyota thing, is the RSCA. Are you familiar with that? Do you have this button in your rig?
I have this button, and I literally never push it, even though I should every time I off-road. But yes, I do have this button.
So the RSCA, once again, you don't pronounce this one as a word, but it's definitely an acronym. Roll sensing curtain airbags. It lets you turn off the side curtain airbags on your vehicle when you're on a steep side hill. Sometimes airbags like to just kind of deploy.
I have never even heard of them for side hills. It's more if you do actually take a little nap with your FJ or whatever Toyota vehicle it is that has this, and you just do that light flop, it doesn't just boom and set off all your airbags.
That's that's good.
Because, if you're off-roading, you can, you could easily let things fall on their side, especially places like, say, I'm just going to go Moab, where you do that. you roll it, but the angle is so high beside you that it's on two tires, but you're at 48 degrees or something,
You
But on some,
literally roll it on its side and it falls 2 inches, and that's all it has
yeah,
to fall before
it's
it makes
technically
contact.
rolled, but it's not. Whereas some
Yeah.
vehicles, when they sense that impact, just boom, the full side curtain. It's wildly painful for the driver, I'm sure, when that thing's taking your arm off as it's hanging out the window, and then you don't have to pay $15,000 or whatever it costs to get new airbags.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, my insurance company covered that for me. Last one here I'm gonna do, and I'll kick it back to you, is the VCS. That must really be VSC. Let's change that here real quick. VSC, Vehicle Stability Control. So it helps you keep control of your vehicle in slippery situations. So when you're driving recklessly.
You want to hit that button on the third date. Then we have LSD. You do these at different concerts. No, limited slip differential. So this is almost as good as the locker, but it's one of those things where depending on which kind you have, it lets your tire slip a certain amount on one side before it engages both. So it's not a locker. It's not an open diff. It's somewhere in between, depending on what kind. Some are ratcheting, some are helical. There's a whole bunch of different kinds. Then we have ABS. You've probably seen this light in your car when you're starting up, even if you don't know what it means. Anti-lock brake system. So every modern vehicle has it, and by modern I mean since late 80s, pretty much everything has had anti-lock brakes. Early 90s.
It's probably a law.
I would assume. I'm trying to think. I think I had some early 90s Hondas that didn't have anti-lock brakes, but it's that late 80s, early 90s where they all have it. Anything you probably drive now.
I know my 97 Racer, same thing as a Ford Escort, didn't have it because I locked the brakes up just to see if it did, and they just locked up and flat spotted my tires pretty hard.
So just because it didn't have it didn't mean it come from the factory with it. And also some of that early ABS, not that good.
It's possible, I guess. Yeah, that's true.
OEM, original equipment manufacturer. So you've heard guys, OEM or OEM parts. You want, it's an OEM takeoff, OEM some axles. That just means they're original equipment for whatever vehicle that you're speaking about at that moment. And then we have LED. Oh boy, do we. Those big LED light bars. Maybe you've wondered, what does LED mean? Well, that means light emitting diode. I'm going to be honest, guys. Beyond that, I don't know what it means.
What's a diode? What's a diode?
You tell me.
I don't know what the technical term for the little piece of whatever a diode is, but a diode only lets electricity flow one way. So when I added a switch in the cab of my truck so that I could turn on my backup lights independently of having to put it in reverse, I put a diode in line because when I would put it in reverse, it would light up the switch on my dash because it was sending power back through. So I blocked that power from coming back to the switch with a diode. Okay, next one here, CAI. You've probably seen this one around. Cold air intake. Not a lot of people call it a CAI, but you might see it referred to that online when you're reading stuff. CV joint. The CV stands for constant velocity. LCA, lower control arm, and UCA would be upper control arm. I was waiting for the people in the back to respond, but I guess they weren't. No one was up for the task on that.
And then we have ECU. If you know this, maybe you had ECU problems at some point and realized how much ECUs cost. That stands for electronic control unit or electronic computer unit. IFS, independent front suspension. If you have that, anybody who does not have independent front suspension will be quick to point out what IFS is and how inferior it is to straight axles. So if you do have IFS, I'm sure you know. IRS, independent rear suspension. If you have this, you have a Honda Ridgeline, most likely. And we're all making fun of you. But that is independent rear
Well, there's rigs like the original Humvee is IFS IRS. It's independent all the way around.
If you're in anytime you have independent suspension that also has portals, then everyone stops making fun of you.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
Independent suspension paired with anything portal, once again, then you no longer get made fun of. Yes, Hummers do have independent rear suspension, but generally speaking, independent rear is for cars and trucks that are really cars. Then we have SAS, solid axle swap. So that's what a lot of Toyota guys do. They SAS'd. They often apostrophize that. I SAS this, I SAS that. That means they did a solid axle swap. It's generally speaking to the front IFS system, and they went ahead and did a solid axle on there.
And they like to say sassed. I sassed it.
I've never heard anybody say that, and I hope I do though, because I'm going to immediately make fun of them.
Oh, really? Oh yeah. Man, I've heard sassed a lot. Yeah, you gonna sass your truck? You
sass the daylights out of it, man. So sassy.
Yeah, sass it hard.
Sassy.
You need Bud Light for that work day.
Yeah.
All right. DRL. There you go. Take a hit there. You getting ready to sass something, Coy?
Yeah. Sass the daylight out of it.
DRL would be daytime running lights. So most newer vehicles, this is probably a law also that you have to have DRLs. And usually when people have DRLs, their dash is lit up. They see headlights in front of them, and they don't realize they're driving around with just their daytime running lights on and no running lights or brake lights or anything like that. So you'll see those cars at nighttime driving around. SUV would be sport utility vehicle, and CUV would be crossover utility vehicle. What's interesting, I did a little bit of research because I was kind of curious, and the internet is now saying that a sport utility vehicle is a body on frame vehicle, whereas the crossover utility vehicle is a unibody. Do you have any thoughts on that, Coy?
You kind of sprung that on me, but I feel like there's some SUVs that probably aren't actually SUVs by that definition.
Absolutely.
I'm not, because I mean, technically, then Cherokees are CUVs, right?
CUVs, exactly. Yes.
I'm calling the Cherokees all JKs.
Not JKs.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. XJs are all crossovers now. Sweet crossover. Can't believe you take crossover up here, even though you have 60s on it.
Exactly. Yeah. And the example that they use, they're like the Ford Explorer, the newest version, 3-row CUV, crossover utility vehicle, because it's not body on frame, it's a CUV. That's like the biggest unibody SUV you can get, and they're saying it's a CUV. So yeah,
I don't totally agree. I like how I like the definition between frame and not, but I feel like crossover is the car that you kind of lift it up a little bit and off-roadify.
Yes, 100%.
Over that segment, typically they would be a unibody because you're making a car more off-roady. But I'm fine with this if we want to do the definition that way. Like, it works for me.
Yeah. One more here, the ATV, which stands for all-terrain vehicle, and ATVs usually refer to four-wheelers, quads, and three-wheelers.
So yeah, I have UTV here, utility terrain to vehicle. Utility terrain vehicle. It generally is referring to those side-by-sides you see on farms, John Deere Gators, kind of those 5-wheeler deals. There's certain 4-wheelers that I think kind of
5-wheelers.
Yeah, the Gators that have one steering and then 4 tires in the back. John Deere Gator. They have 6-wheel
No,
ones
those are
too.
those 6. I've never seen a 5 Gator. Okay.
Oh, you got to go to crappier farms, bro. Yeah, no,
they can't afford that 5th wheel.
Yeah,
You're talking about like a Cushman from like the 1960s.
no. Google 5-wheel Gator. I promise. It's
Okay,
you've seen it before. I know you have. And then SXS, that stands for side by side. So, when somebody is on Facebook and they're saying SSX ruined it for all the rest of us, they're saying the side by sides ruined it for the rest of us.
So
OHM.
this is a an instance where the X doesn't mean cross, it means by, which is interesting.
OHM, off highway motorcycle. So, dirt bikes, maybe even adventure bikes.
I don't ever hear OHM anywhere other than maybe like at a park, like an off-road vehicle park.
Yeah, that's the only time I ever seen that in like maps and stuff. ORV, off-road vehicle. And then Aaron, why don't you take a couple?
All right. OHV, which is just kind of like ORV, is off-highway vehicle. ORV and OHV, I kind of feel like they're pretty much interchangeable, and I hear both of them interchangeably used when you're like, oh, I want to go to the ORV park or the OHV park. It seems like that's what the government uses when they label the places that you get to go wheel on their property. So an OHV, off-highway vehicle, would be snowmobiles, 4-wheel drive rigs, stuff like that. Then we got the CB, which stands for Citizens Band. That would be your CB radio. You got the FRS, the Family Radio Service, and then the GMRS, which is the General Mobile Radio Service. The FRS is a low wattage UHF, and the GMRS is a medium wattage UHF. Oh, you know what? I'm going to throw one more in here, Coy. UHF stands for ultra high frequency, since we're talking about radio stuff. And I guess I could do one more. VHF would be very high frequency. I can't tell you the frequency ranges off the top of my head, but I'll just throw those out there.
I like how those acronyms came around. Like, oh, this one's pretty high. This one's higher though.
Yeah, this is ultra. This is ultra high. This one's very high. I think there's a third one also.
I'm pretty sure there's HF. We got high frequency.
Oh, that's right. It's HF. Yeah,
ultra high frequency.
Yes, that's it.
Ham. There's a lot of debate.
I'm so glad you got this one.
There's a lot of debate about what ham stands for. Some people say home amateur radio. Back in the day, supposedly, basically people were making fun of nerds. Called like ham bones. It was kind of an old school insult.
Ham bones.
So I don't really know. You talk to different guys, you Google different things. It means different things, but it's just amateur radio.
Yeah.
GPS.
So it's not even a known acronym anymore.
I don't know that it is. Maybe it was at one point, but there's multiple reasons why people say GPS, Global Positioning System. Everybody probably knows that one. Then GLONASS, GLONASS. That is the Russian version of GPS, the Global Navigation Satellite System. So that's the comrade version of GPS. And then one of my favorites, as you're into wheeling, you're gonna definitely hear this one. It's called FUBAR. It's never good when you've FUBAR'd. That's effed up beyond all repair. It's bad. So, yeah.
FUBAR.
Yeah.
All right.
We've all been there.
Beyond all repair. COG, center of gravity. I don't see that one get thrown out very much, but I do hear it from time to time. GVW, gross vehicle weight. So that would be how much your vehicle weighs. That's just the total weight of it. And then GVWR, gross vehicle weight rating. So that's how much your vehicle is allowed by the manufacturer to weigh when it has all the people, all the luggage, all the gear, all the Bud Light in it. RTT, rooftop tent, that one's kind of a given. That one's super easy. And then the last one, the Coupe de Gras here, is the LMTV, which is the light medium tactical vehicle. That was the pretty awesome military truck that I used to own back in the day. So yeah, all the firewood, you need to take into account the firewood when you are talking about your GVWR. So there you have it. There is a few off-road acronyms. If you have any favorites, let us know what your favorite acronym is. Even if it's something like FUBAR, I think it'd be fun to hear some other ideas out there. So next week, we're going to be covering the 2024 Toyota Tacoma. So that thing, we were going to do a news segment about it, but it is so refreshed and new, and a lot of stuff happening with it. Engines, suspension, different packages that we're going to do a whole episode on it.
You really got to think Toyota basically didn't change anything for like 16 years straight. And so we were able to all these other, Rangers and all these, we can just a little snippet here and there. Whereas Toyota likes to save all theirs up for several decades and then release all this new stuff at once. So there's a lot to go through.
Yeah, there definitely is. So, yep. So that'll be our episode next week. So tune in for that. And we do want to appreciate everybody who has been listening with us and suffered through all these letters that we just spat out. I hope you stay up at night thinking about all of them and you can't sleep tonight. I think that'd be hilarious. Appreciate you guys watching. Make sure that if you do want to watch us, you check us out on YouTube. That's where most of the commenters are, where you can interact with other like-minded individuals. We really appreciate you guys. Thanks for sharing us with your friends and helping us grow. God bless America.
Don't forget to visit Patriot Patch and join the Patch of the Month Club. Check out our Gaia affiliate link for up to 40% off. Also, don't forget to head over to Warren Medical Gear Outfitters and Colby Valve to see all their great gear. We're a proud part of the Firearms Radio Network. Got a comment or question? Send it to us through our webpage at firearmsradio.net or through our social media channels by searching for Off-Road Podcast. Also, you can listen to us live at overlandradio.com Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. When off-road, please remember to have fun, tread lightly, be safe, and courteous. Thanks for listening.
I also wanted to bring up the Pavement Haters Off-Road Community Group Chat. If you're a part of that, go ahead and click on that. There's some good conversation going on there. Lots of good pictures.
I wish I could be part of it, but Facebook doesn't think I need to be.
Yeah, you have to earn that privilege, apparently.